Happening right now on Sports Extra. Football season officially over, which is probably the saddest day of the year. And the Eagles, they are Super Bowl champions. How does that relate to the Falcons? Well, Kirk's comments got him in trouble again. Or did it? The Hawks were sellers at the trade deadline, and Brittany Griner's star power has arrived right here in the A. Here's a little bit of a preview on what we have on tap for you tonight.
It just keeps coming back to, you cannot be great without the greatness of others. This is the best team sport there is.
Then against the Saints, got hit pretty good in my right shoulder and elbow. And from there, kind of dealing with that, was something I was working through.
These decisions are never easy. A lot of times it comes down to discerning not necessarily between good and bad, but good and better.
Honesty, transparency, and just people just being genuine. I feel like it's hard to find that, unfortunately, in today's world. And when you do, you got to hold on to that.
Oh, you do have to hold on to it. And you have to hold on to your TV right here because we're going to have so much fun tonight. We are live for this edition of Sports Extra. Look at my friends. They've made it to the studio. We're live. It starts now. How about that fancy new open? Y'all like that? Welcome to Sports Extra, everybody. Thanks for staying up late with us this evening. So not many people were thrilled about who was actually in the Super Bowl, but I don't think that many people saw the result that was coming, so you were entertained regardless. Let's get right into it and let me direct your attention to this. There is no three-peat. Thank goodness, right? At least for some of us. Super Bowl 59 was an absolute beatdown by the Eagles, and the Birds are taking home their second Super Bowl in franchise history, taking down the Chiefs. It was all Eagles, all game. Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts gives his credit to his defense.
Number one, defense wins championships. Defense wins championships, and we saw how they played today. We saw the difference they made in the game, and they gave us opportunities, gave us short fields, and we were able to do what we do.
Do what they did and did it well too. I'm very happy for Jalen Hurts. It was an incredible game to watch, and I have two very incredible guests. Although you work here, so I don't know if I can call you a guest. This is Reggie Chatman, if you didn't know.
Hello. Look, so the guy that you had on earlier with a tie, that's not me anymore. Okay. I'm guest Reggie now.
We are without the tie, so this is guest Reggie.
I'm a different dude, totally different dude.
Well, we love both versions of Reggie, and also by the skin of his teeth, he made it. Gabe Burns, thank you for being here on a night where Atlanta traffic is so unpredictable, my friend.
Atlanta traffic really is something else, especially for those of us, trying to get to work on time. Right? So.
You're right, and we appreciate you being here for sure, especially for this live show. We're great to have you guys here with us this evening. And look, Atlanta traffic, that is undefeated every time. But you know what? The Chiefs, they were the ones that a lot of people thought could get this three-peat done. And, I was a little snarky off the top about the Chiefs. It would have been cool to see a three-peat, but I think the Eagles, Reggie, them getting their second Super Bowl title in franchise history in the way that they did it. What did you think about Super Bowl 59?
I mean, just a dominant performance from the Eagles. I mean, and look, if you want to put one word into it, it was a little bit surprising because although you knew the Eagles had maybe the best roster in the sport, and every position they got superstars, you always felt like Patrick Mahomes somehow, some way would pull some black magic out of a hat, ended up pulling off a win. He couldn't do it because that front for the Eagles was so good, and I'm sure we're going to talk a whole bunch about that tonight.
Yeah, Gabe, what about you?
Once again, it's a reminder that you win in the trenches. I mean, what their
point.
offensive line did, that defensive front is just so fierce, and the times that we have seen the Chiefs overwhelmed, we saw it against Tampa a few years ago in similar fashion. We saw it. Reggie's right. There's just stars at every single level. Howie Roseman, their general manager, has done a pretty remarkable job with that team.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like the ending of this game, right? 2:47 on the clock, and a Gatorade bath is getting dumped on the head coach.
Yeah.
What is life? This was insane.
Was in the game.
Kenny Pickett was also in the game. I saw you taking pictures of him. It was a fun sight to see him be quarterback for just a little bit. It was a wild one for sure. Let's talk about another quarterback who wins Super Bowl MVP, Mr. Jalen Hurts. I said that I'm happy for him. I covered him when he was in college. He's such a cool story. He's always had to overcome adversity. He had on his phone, the confetti when he lost to the Chiefs a couple of years ago. That stuck with him, Gabe. What was it about his performance that was particularly special tonight over the Chiefs?
Well, he managed the game incredibly well. He took calculated shots. I mean, it was really it was one of the best games he's played. And remember the last Super Bowl, he stepped up there too, even though they didn't win. I want to say about Jalen Hurts, and you know this having covered him, when you look at, he's been under so much pressure since college. You play at Alabama, you play quarterback for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Then you're in Philadelphia, of all places.
A lot of pressure.
And this guy continues to answer. And there's been a lot of critics. There's been a lot of criticism. Some of it, a lot of it justified. He hasn't played well at times. But just who he is, how he overcomes adversity, how he's continued to develop as a player, because you think about him his early days at Alabama to where he is now. Honestly, this is what sports is all about. Seeing a guy like this and who he's become, it's really, really cool.
He's so composed all the time. So to see just a couple of tears fall from his eyes as the clock was ticking down, I thought was really refreshing, because you don't really see that a lot from him. And I think his composure has taken him to this moment where he does have a ring now. He's got multiple. He had one in college as well. So he's a Super Bowl champion now. He can take a deep breath, and Philadelphia can, make a statue of Jalen Hurts or something as they grease the poles on Broad Street, I am sure. Our producer, Megan Smedley, will be showing us all of those things. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Dogs, represented well, right? 6 players on the Eagles. And guess what? They're all Super Bowl champions, Reggie, and there's a couple of them that have won 3 rings in 4 years because of their run with the Georgia Bulldogs. Who in that group impresses you?
Well, look, I think it's really the 2 guys that they didn't actually have a sack or a tackle in this game, and I think Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith were incredible. It feels like we kept hearing their names called all night long as they continue to get closer and closer to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
They never ended up getting home, but boy, you felt their presence in this game. 2 incredible players, but this whole team, a lot of that front for his full of dogs. Jordan Davis had a sack in this game. It's an incredible front, and a lot of them are Georgia Bulldogs, so we like to see it.
Basically, what you're telling the Falcons front office is it's okay to draft players from Georgia. Is that what you were saying?
Hey, you kind of read between the lines there. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. That should happen if anybody's listening. You can draft players from Georgia.
They're pretty good.
How about it?
They're very good. Okay, let's talk about a guy that was not drafted from the University of Georgia. Saquon Barkley, he gets a Super Bowl ring. How about that? And he didn't have a touchdown in this game, which I think a lot of people bet on and were probably disappointed, right, Gabe? But Saquon broke the single-season rushing record in the NFL this evening. The year that Saquon had, otherworldly. We're lucky that Bijan Robinson is in the same breath as this man. What did you think about his season?
We were there his first home game with the Eagles, actually, against which the Falcons won, by the way. How about that?
Monday Night Football, they were
Kirk
winners.
Cousins clutch drive. Yeah. There you go. It was one of the greatest seasons that we've seen. I know that New York Giants fans are absolutely sick, and honestly, it's just the way that things are going for them, because I can't really blame them given where they were. You don't want to pay a running back. You let this guy go. He goes to one of your rivals. He has one of the best seasons that any running back's ever had, and he wins the Super Bowl. So, again, kudos to him, because this is one of those guys that we go back to at Penn State, one of the best running back prospects in recent memory, and he's fulfilled everything that we thought he would do.
Similar to when we're watching Bijan Robinson play, when Megan Smedley, our producer, and I are watching football games together, we say he's so good so many times for those 2 players. So cool to watch him get a Super Bowl ring. I want to finish with the defensive line, Reggie. You are an expert at the defensive line. We've heard you say a lot of things about it tonight, and we're talking about the Falcons and how there is pressure for them to get better defensively. They have an opportunity to draft a good pass rusher in this draft. Does what we saw tonight by the Eagles defensive line and the way they took over the game put pressure on teams like the Falcons, who are always near the bottom in the NFL?
Well, I think it's interesting because, the answer is yes, of course. And we talked about it earlier. Maybe go after a Georgia Bulldog. But I think in general, what was impressive about what the Eagles were doing, and I'm sure you were going to talk about it earlier, this is a group that doesn't blitz a whole lot. They just have a really, really dominant front 4 guys that go out there and just get after the passer really, really well. So it's all about just having great players. You can scheme up stuff as much as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, you got to have the bodies and the skill and the ability. You got a couple of Georgia guys that are coming out that you might have to trade up to go get, considering how good they really are.
Didn't have to blitz at all, which was mind-blowing. And Patrick Mahomes played some of the worst football we have seen him play, Gabe. But back to the original question about this defensive line, they were completely dominant all game. Does that turn up the heat for the Falcons?
Absolutely. Again, it's just like what we were talking about with what the Bucks did to Mahomes a few years ago. You see it here. By the way, Josh Sweat is a free agent. He's gonna get a lot of money from somebody, and wouldn't it make some sense if it was a team that was somewhere near us?
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
It would help. Milton Williams too is also a free agent, so there's going to be a lot of contracts coming for some of these Eagles guys, well deserved. But the Falcons are going to need to scoop up. Some of them they're going to need Certainly Jalen Walker is a guy that we had the pleasure of watching up the road here who would make a lot of sense here. So we'll see, but there's no doubt when you look at the Falcons, when you look at these defensive issues, there's one thing that they have continuously had, and it's the lack of pass rush. And it's been pathetic. It's been absolutely pathetic. It's been embarrassing, and it has been for a long time. So they're going to have to take care of that this offseason.
I know that Raw gets a little bit annoyed when we continuously ask these questions each and every week. Where's the pass rush? But if you find it, we'll stop asking the questions.
We promise.
I promise. All right, coming up, the Hawks are certainly busy on Thursday afternoon. We're talking NBA trade deadline, what those moves that they made or didn't make, and how they affect the future of this franchise. That's next. Welcome back, everybody. The NBA trade deadline certainly brought the drama this week, and the Hawks, they played their part in it, sending away 2 members of their core in DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic. Now, they also bring in Karis LeVert, George Niang, Terrence Mann, and Bones Nyland, who's already been waived. General Manager Landry Fields says these moves were all about the future.
Terrence and in Karis and in George, all having productive seasons themselves, and the types of players, when I talk about Hawks DNA, they fit that. And so to get them here, as well as what I believe are valuable assets for our continued team building, is a part of why we did what we did. Want to wish those guys that were here well and nothing but the best, but excited about the guys coming in and the opportunities that we're going to have to continue to build.
All right, guys, mixed reactions for what the Hawks did or did not do at the NBA trade deadline on Thursday, 3 p.m. Our resident NBA expert, Reggie Chatman, is here with us, and he loves to talk basketball, so I'm going to let him shine a little bit. The NBA trade deadline on Thursday, Reggie, how did you feel about it? Did you feel like there were more moves to be made, or are you kind of happy with what happened?
Well, so really the thing that stood out to me the most is the reaction to the DeAndre Hunter trade. I mean, if you think about not even 6 months ago, like 3 months ago, obviously DeAndre's was having a pretty, like his best year of his career, but 3 months ago, people would have been very happy to get DeAndre Hunter out of here because they've been trying to maybe get him off this team for a while for different assets and just try and get some new life into this building. So look, I think they ended up trading him away when his value was at least the highest. Maybe you think you could have gotten a little bit more, but you got 3 players back between that trade and the one with Bogdan Bogdanovic to get some good players in here that I think can really contribute. And after that first game, it showed they really can. And
good for Dre. I mean, he lands on a team who is a contender at the moment, and they get an immediate need filled with Dre, and he was marketable, the most marketable that he has been in his career. To your point, I think that's an excellent point. Gabe, for you, which absence are you going to feel a little bit more? Is it Dre or is it Bogey?
Well, it's definitely Dre because Bogey wasn't having his best year. We know that, and we kind of expected him to move. Dre, I would agree. I feel like they could have gotten more for him, but you're right. You're right. This is a guy that they had been looking at moving previously, and it was understandable kind of why they did, and it's a great fit for him. I mean, that's a guy that you're going to be able to put on those Boston wings, right? That's going to be big for them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I will say, as far as what they're doing here, you can only kind of sell hope for so long.
Good point.
The guys you're bringing in here, I mean, we need to start kind of seeing something. And I know, like, you look at what happened with Jalen Johnson, and now this team hasn't really held together. I understand that, but Trae Young is going to be looking around. The fans are looking around, and they're just kind of going, you know, what exactly is going to be happening here? You keep saying you're building, you keep saying you're an eye toward the future. Well, when does the future become the present?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it'll come to a point where fans are so frustrated that there's going to be a demand in a change somewhere, if it comes from Trae, if it comes from the front office. And look, this team made the Eastern Conference Finals and set expectations that were unrealistic to where they were at that point. They still haven't made significant moves to get better, and so I think the patience meter is probably running out, to your point. Reggie, let's talk about the guys that are coming in. You get rid of Dre, you get rid of Bogey, but there's a handful of guys that are here now. Which of them are you eyeing and saying, this could be a little intriguing?
I was really impressed with George Niang. In his first game in a Hawks uniform, there was a stretch in the third quarter where he hit 4 threes back to back to back to back. He started his first game. I mean, they didn't even have practice together. He started the game for the Hawks the other day versus the Wizards, played well, had 16 points. The other 2 guys had I think 13 points as well, combined as well, coming off the bench. But George Niang's a player that can come in here, can shoot the ball really well, is overall a great shooter, kind of stretches the floor a little bit big as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's why I said shooter. I think you're onto something too, because I know Hawks fans are very frustrated, but George Niang That's
player.
a nice return.
Good player.
It is a good player, but it's not a franchise-changing player, which I think we talk about the patience meter running out, and that's what people want to see. And interestingly enough, Gabe, earlier this week, I talked to Brad Rowland from Locked On Hawks, and he made mention that he thinks that the Hawks could still be a playoff team. Do you agree or disagree?
They absolutely could still be, but what is it worth?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what I would say.
Good point.
I guess people could counter and say, were they going to be anything but first-round fodder anyway? I feel like either way, that's kind of what was going to happen with this team as soon as Jalen, got hurt. This is just what we're looking at. We'll see. I mean, you're right. Some of these pieces, we'll see. I've always been, Man is a nice player. You look around, like maybe there's a little something more here, but this feels like to me, if this is going to be a playoff team, it's going to be a quick out.
I hate to do the Hawks like this, but let's talk about a very exciting team in town, the WNBA, the Atlanta Dream. I'm sorry, the Hawks need to get me excited about something, but the WNBA, they're making really big moves. I mean, the Atlanta Dream just made their biggest move in franchise history, shook up the entire WNBA, shocked everybody, Reggie. Brittany Griner. BG is here. I can't even go over her accolades because they're so long. They're longer than all the papers on the desk right now. How much of an impact and a change does it make when a player like BG plays for your team?
Well, I think it's interesting because we talk about hoping that your franchise brings on some talent that can make an instant impact, but even if they don't, just make things more exciting. But the thing about BG, she's going to do both. This deep into her career, like you said, her Wikipedia page, all of her accolades is long as can be. Yeah. It's just unbelievable. Championships all over the place. And the fact that she comes here, can dominate, and still is what? She's just coming off an all-star season. She's still averaging more than 17 points a night. She is still a star in this league and will continue to be on this team that has a couple other all-stars caliber players as well.
She said ticky-talky. That's what she said. She called TikTok ticky-talky.
Well.
She'll learn. It's okay. She's got young teammates to teach her the ways of TikTok. All right, guys, coming up, Kirk Cousins. His comments may have actually gotten him in trouble again. Shocker, I know. All about his injury comments he made this week in New Orleans and how this actually adds another very interesting layer to the Falcons' offseason. So as we all know, the Falcons were not in the Super Bowl this time, but that didn't mean that the Dirty Birds stayed out of the headlines this week. That's what happens during Super Bowl week. Kirk Cousins appeared on Good Morning Football earlier this week on NFL Network, discussing his injury history. Now, he said his Achilles was fine, which we've questioned a lot, but he also revealed he'd been battling something else throughout the season.
Then against the Saints, got hit pretty good in my right shoulder and elbow. And from there, kind of dealing with that, was something I was working through and just never really could get it to where I wanted it. And so now that the season's over, you have the time and the energy to say, okay, let's get the right ankle back. Let's get the shoulder back. Let's get the elbow back.
So let's go back to that Saints game. The Falcons lose by 3. Kirk threw for more than 300 yards, but was sacked 3 times. Now, the following week, he did pop up on the injury report as limited on Wednesday, but was clear the rest of the week. The next game, a beatdown at the Broncos, which we try to forget, but Cousins threw for less than 200 yards in the loss, and afterwards, he said he was fine.
Yeah, I'm good. That was a bit of a clerical error because we had walkthrough. And so when you walk through, they don't really know what you could have done or couldn't have done. If we had had a full speed practice, I would not have been on the report because I would have done everything.
So you're 100%.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe, jump right in, will you? What did you think whenever he started doing what he does best and just saying a little too much?
I think we all knew that he was dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
I think if you were watching the games, we suspected that. I totally get why he's saying it. I mean, he's got to kind of defend himself here, right? He's got to explain what went wrong. He's going to be looking for he's going to be looking for a starting job. So it doesn't look like that his relationship with it doesn't look like this is going to end very well.
Yeah, it feels like it's hard for it to end that way, too. And I very much agree with you, and I'm glad you brought it up. They were 6-2. You don't just get that bad at the quarterback position that quickly. Something else was happening. He just happened to finally say it at this point in Super Bowl week, Reggie. But does it change what he said? Does it change your opinion of how things end with Kirk here in Atlanta if they do?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the reason that he finally brought this up, like you guys said, is he wants to help himself get another job. So at the end of the day, look, at the end of the day, it is frustrating. I'm sure fans at home were like, dude, you could have said this way earlier. The fact that you were afraid to just let people know that you were injured, maybe have the guy behind you come in and play some games because he drafted your replacement, maybe that's the reason why he didn't say it. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, this is the NFL. You have an opportunity to make sure your team knows what's going on. You played pretty badly the next 4 weeks. And so really, I think what it's going to now mean is that he's going to move on. the Falcons now have a better opportunity to get rid of him, considering people now will think that he's still has the ability to play football, and it was just an injury was the issue.
One of the smartest people I think I've ever come across is Kirk's agent. He has done such a phenomenal job with Kirk and his career. The way that his contract is structured, it's going to make it very difficult for the Falcons to just make a decision. They both have to agree. So I think in Kirk saying some of these things, it helps that breakup go a little bit more seamlessly. Gabe, how do you think it ends for Kirk here in Atlanta, real quick?
I think he winds up being released, and we'll see what. And that's just ultimately. And look, they tampered with him. They lost draft picks for it. It just it didn't work.
And a lot of teams in the NFL need a quarterback and will make it work. And Kirk's like, look, I'm healthy. I promise. I wasn't at some point in the year. So he's proven that he can play quarterback when he doesn't have everything else going on. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show with our video of the week next. Had to leave you with a parting image that I think Patrick Mahomes is also going to be left with. Jalen Carter in his face, you guys.
Not good. Jalen Carter is very good at football. That might send me to the moon. I don't know if I'd ever get up if I got hit in the hand by Jalen. Oh my gosh.
That's a picture we're going to be seeing for a while, I think. And it doesn't beat him lifting up Reggie's boy, Jaden Daniels. That's the iconic picture. But that one's going to be in there too. That's way up there.
What a great memory. Wow. Okay, guys, way too early Super Bowl 60 predictions. Who's going to win it?
Lamar Jackson comes over the hump, finally gets it done. I know you're kind of a Bills girl, so
Okay.
Lamar Jackson gets it done.
Lamar and I are from the same place. I love it. Go ahead.
I have Lions, Ravens, and I know that nothing good ever happens for Lamar or Detroit when it comes to the playoffs. But we're not going to be held to these, so I want to see Lions, Ravens.
Oh, that would be great. I want the Bills to win. They've never done it, so I think it would be awesome. I want people to jump through a table But if Lamar wins too, that'd be fine.
Michael Penix MVP season. Falcons go to the Super Bowl.
Let's do it. All right. Happy spring training week, everybody. Thanks for joining us live here on Sports Extra. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next Sunday.